still viable and active, it's not dormant. We're underfunded, but that sort of helps position the organization. Then we could have another, a year from that, another 250. Maybe limit the projects to 25,000, so that way we funded 10 projects. I think also by lowering the funding amount per project, it'll reduce the number of applicants because there'll be a lot of groups that won't be enough money or won't be. So we'll tend to get probably smaller organizations with. I think it's probably a good thing here.
Way to look at this too is that we have, over the time we've existed, gotten several windfalls. And it's possible that there are other windfalls out there we don't know about. Like the fish lake money and the drought money. And so if we just think of this as keeping ourselves viable with kind of the bare minimum until we can figure out something else, that it maybe isn't a forever thing, that it's only going to be $250 per grant cycle. But that we have bigger aspirations. We just have to convince the legislators or whoever that look at, and maybe that's part of the strategy. Like, look at what we're reduced to. When you promise, long ago that if we raised $1 million, you would match it every year. And that kind of went nowhere. So they really kind of reneged on their promise to us. So I don't know. I guess I'd like to be optimistic and think that there's going to be other money coming in somewhere if we work on it.
Yeah, and I think your lower amount, I mean, by nature too, you feel like we're going to fund 10 applications across the country. So like, I'm not applying for that. Like, there's a lot of people that are just not going to apply for that money because it's too much, etc. So I think you will see those. Maybe the prison guy who makes $3,000, or the summer camps who want 25 to make a year ago. Like, you probably will see those smaller groups coming out and figure out those dollars. I would say.
I was going to ask you specifically, Kelly, what you thought, what that number that Mark threw out might do. Like, is that going to preclude like the typical watershed council applying for?
It just depends. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so many projects cost so much money. So it's just, I was expressing to Jane earlier, that it's like, you have this temptation too, where you want to fund like a lot of projects across the suite of things. But then, if you're on the other side of that, I've got an estuary project going on the ground next year and I already have 9 grants that I'm not there, and it's still like, it's just so much money in little pots from everybody and you got to manage all that stuff. So, but not everybody's doing those big projects either. Some of it's trail keepers, or doing recreation projects. So I think it'll just knock out the people who are doing larger scale projects, I think is what you might see go away, which is fine because there are lots of other bigger, really big pots of money out there too. The major big pots also, PFA is going to be around.
PFA landed in a really good place after the legislative session.
Thank God. I was worried that was a big one.
PFA was given $10 million like Facebook. So that's good.
So we'll direct everyone to the PFA.
And that was another one of the mandated things, right? The legislature said, we're going to do this and we will give $10 million.
That was part of the stakeholders' vision of how it should work. And it took several years from that concept to get it through legislature.
Is that still going to be a biennium by biennium?
Yeah. It's now, it doesn't have to be requested.
It does not.
Yeah, but it's,
Statewide too, there are lots of big or medium or small folks are all having to do what we're doing. We're all figuring it out. So if we can just hold steady, then everybody will be in better positions. I think it's really important. I really like your suggestion to just kind of break it down, stay strong, do more more awareness of what we do. I think we could double the technology by letting people know the important work that gets done because of us. We have room there and hold strong while people get things sorted out.
And there's only 4 out of 101 of these applications that asked for less than 25,000. So let that be known
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of money, but it's really not, can't do anything.
Yeah, it is, it's 25,000 is. You hope that there's enough projects where 25,000 is a lot of money. to get it done. And those are the ones we need to try to look at. Because again, we'll still get the application where it's $1 million project and they'll take
Yeah.
25,000.
Yeah.
And then what does that do? What does our piece do?
Yeah.
How much-
It's all very important.
how important?
You could consider, this is just, I'm just brainstorming with you, I'm not necessarily advocating for this. But you could consider calling for people to put in if they just need a capacity grant. So for example,
Okay.
tribes, they see a lot of funding availability and they're like, we'd love to put in for that, but we do not have anybody on staff who can take the time to. So, you know, a lot of times what we end up wanting to support are projects that actually create benefit, immediate benefit on the ground. Capacity grants are a little bit of an investment with some risk,
So important and there's not.
but there's not a lot of capacity. So if 25K doesn't stretch that far, one thing you could say in solicitation is we're open to capacity.
That would probably hit a lot more than.
Do we need to decide this today? So that we know what we're doing for the next cycle?
Probably.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just trying to figure out if we needed to make a decision on this today, like this is what we are gonna do in the next cycle.
I don't think we do. I mean,
I think we can talk about it the next.
I think we're not going to have an RFP in our next scheduled RFP. And what we'll do, I think we need to give ourselves some time. And I think our next RFP is going to be about a year from
Oh, okay.
now. But then that does give us some things to do and we have to be strategic about it. I think we have to alert everybody. And I think that can be part of the campaign. Is, okay, everybody that's ever applied to us, if we say, hey, here's the deal. We're sorry, but we're not gonna have an RFP. We're gonna have a much smaller RFP. We didn't get the funding. And oh, by the way, well, there's things we probably can't say, but the implication is, this is a serious situation for us. And get that out to as many people as you can.
Put a donation button on it.
Yeah, put the donation button on. And so that is something in the short term that we need to do. I mean, people are expecting us to be coming out with an RFP. We need to say we're not going to have an RFP and for this round, and then give us some time. And that's a discussion for us to have. My thought is wait a year for that RFP. Or if we're worried that that's going to stop momentum or whatever, go ahead and have an RFP, but it will be the small one. And then wait a year for the next one. So the timing, I think, given this is somewhat disruptive for us, and give us some time to figure out what we're doing and wait a year for the next RFP.
And you technically have your wildlife crossing request for interest out, so you haven't had one currently. And in your administrative rules, it says 1 per year as cleansing of it. So you're not required to do 2 by any means. Can plan for future. How do you think it affects the folks on the ground, fall timing versus spring time? I know as a reader, it's a completely different world for me to, review in the middle of summer versus. Yeah, and I would say like Kelly is a grant writer.
Yeah, I prefer a winter round girl.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
Because I'm preparing already.
For the
summer.
yeah. So maybe, so maybe that's the fall, if we're gonna be in fall, like a smaller amount this fall, and then we have a year to build.
Or even later than the fall. Like, I mean, if we did kind of
Like
this
a
winter
winter.
round, do a winter round each
I was
year.
gonna say, cause the spring, we call it the spring, but it,
It's,
starts kind of when it's still cold out, winter.
yeah. And that's when you get the most applications.
Yeah.
When do you announce that springs? When do you announce that RFP?
or before March, it's like,
So it can be, it hasn't been same the past 2 years, but it's, we can start it in January. As early as January for spring.
which means money would come to you more like in July then versus August or September. Or what this.
Yes,
At the earliest, so. 'cause
at the earliest, because the full process can take, to receive funds through contracting can take 6 months or.
But the awards would occur June.
What's earlier?
Which that would work. I mean, yeah. I mean, I saw a lot of people applications too. I was looking at a lot of their timelines and it does seem like a lot of people are starting in the fall, but I think it's because you don't have money available until October or something like that.
I mean, I would think in that world, the ideal for the applicants, things start happening in the spring. So you got the money available June, not July, August.
No, that's great.
And to backdate that, what would it take to make it, if money's available in June, when would you have to have the RFP?
Maybe announce it in December.
That's what I was wondering,
to get
November,
a little bit
December.
more Freedom for that water work period.
Uh-huh.
I think before it's been 5 months from announced to when the commission makes a decision. But even when the commission makes a decision, the applicant's still a couple, 3 months out where they get.
Oh, it's so much back and
It has
forth.
to go through the
Contract.
contracting
Yeah.
process. Yeah. So fastest they would get it is 6 months.
How much overlap do you see between the technical staff that are reviewing credit for us board grants? That reviewing these grants, because that is another consideration. We hit them twice. Is it a lot of the same staff or is it really kind of different folks?
There's a lot of different ones. The last time me and Andy kind of compared, there was a couple overlapping,
But mostly not.
mostly not.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's pretty strong fisheries
It is.
and.
You've got no-
You also have
street biologists also.
PFA biologists.
How many RFPs do you have? 1 year, when
And
is it
there's in
sent
the
out?
fall.
Usually around September, October, it goes out.
So if we staggered it by at least a couple months,
Yeah.
that would help with if there's any review.
But it doesn't sound like there is. So maybe
There's
that doesn't
a
mean-
couple.
Christie, do you have a sense, like, is it better for us to have an active RFP this fall relative to interest in the short session, or we had it in January? Does it matter?
Could go 2 ways, but I am leaning more towards maybe January. From like a legislature perspective here. It gives you ground to say the urgency. For OCRF, if you're making a case for OCRF, you can show the urgency. You used to be buying twice a year, biannual, and now you're reduced to 1 year, so you would still be accurate in saying that into last year, because of insufficient funds, they did it only once as opposed to their tradition, which is twice. So I think the benefit in that is that legislature does not, they see giving out money differently than we do. They're very tight on their purse strings there, and so any sort of dole out of SGA always like, why didn't you do this money? And the question is always there. So I almost feel like phrasing this as, this is how high the demand is. This many groups apply. Only this many were able to be funded. Don't even have to talk about the dollar amount. So like, this is how many, and these are the kind of projects that it funds. I think that's the key messaging there. So I feel more to your question mark that maybe January is better because then we can still say we were able to do it only once a year as opposed to twice a year because of just the insufficiency in funds.
So January 5th with the PFFA one. Over that. And so Reba, if we were gonna have, so that's when we would announce the RFP.
Yep.
And so then funding would be available July-ish with the January one. So we don't have to make that specific decision right now. It could be November, December.
We talk about it.
And why don't we think about that? How that fits. So I think everyone sounds pretty good with at least preliminary. We don't have to make a hard and fast decision, but less money, less often, smaller amount. And work on some of these other issues. I think that implies our meeting schedule does not have to be as rigorous. I mean, we've been really pretty much once a month. I don't know that that's necessary. If we're starting to talk about strategies and we have this, we're not gonna have an RFP till end of the year. Like we could hold off meeting till September and give people time to think about things. I don't think we want to go much past that. Part because hopefully by then, Kirsty will have a bit of a roadmap for us for how that process is going to go, and where we as private citizens could fit into that process. Does September sound reasonable for next meeting?
I was gonna say yes, but I'd be happy to like sit on a committee or a work committee where we do a little desktop audit of like the grading scores before we go in our next round and be thinking about the back end of those applications, especially since we're going down to lower funds too, and just really making sure that our scoring is tight and that what we're asking of the applicants for that amount of money is also correctly scaled.
Wow,
That's a great
that would be
idea.
really great.
Yeah, to get together.
Who wants to join me? Yeah.
Do we have anyone willing to help her on that?
Dan, you seem interested. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't know. That was, but anyway, that's just the other piece. I feel like we have these really cool things that are coming up before our next round, which is the outreach pieces. We have some great new projects to showboat now. We have Quintomic stuff coming down. So just making sure that we're aligned on the back end of that too.
Before the next.
RFP. But I don't know if that works actually also with like getting, there's tech people that have to fix things on back ends if we do make any changes or if all that works out together, but happy to
No, I would do it.
yeah, just to do that. And again, it wouldn't have to be a full committee meeting. Yeah.
I'm the tech people here.
Right, that's you. Small organizations.
As far as keeping August, it's almost August already, so
Yeah.
makes total sense to just
So
go straight to
next-
September.
Our next scheduled meeting was September
Yeah,
2nd.
there you go. And at that point, we can decide what.
Cool.
We have that meeting on the books already.
Yeah, well, if there's nothing at that meeting, we could also just have a session. Also.
We're kind of already way behind schedule.
We are.
We are
I'm
like
gonna say,
3 items
we
behind.
have one final presenter, Carolyn Eckrich, and she's been waiting patiently.
Carolyn, I'm so sorry.
So maybe we can get back to discussion, but after her presentation. Let me see if she's online right now.
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are. Okay, and you can hear us and see us okay?
Yes.
I'm gonna stop sharing, and if you're ready to go ahead.
Okay. Are you all able to see my PowerPoint presentation?
I
can, yeah.
Okay. Great. Just 1 second. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. It's great to be back with you all today. My name is Carolyn Eckrich, and I am the State Wildlife Action Plan Revision Coordinator at ODFW. I gave a presentation to you all, I think sometime last year. So I'm back today to talk a little bit more about Oregon State Wildlife Action Plan and the 10-year revision of that plan, and to give you an update on where we are at as we are nearing the end of the process. So I wanted to start by spending some time walking through the entire timeline of the revision to review some of the key elements of the process. The red, orange, and yellow section of the timeline represents 2023 and 2024 and outlines what we accomplished early on in the revision process. We began with a scoping period and completed an extensive internal review of existing content. We also began our outreach with a series of presentations to partner groups and outreach events. And in April 2024, we sent out an external partner and public survey to get initial thoughts on the existing SWAP and areas to focus our revisions on. For the last half of 2024, our staff worked really hard to update the SWAP, incorporating the feedback that we received to produce the first drafts of updated sections. And then transitioning into what we were working on most recently in 2025, and that's shown here in green. In early January, we held our community engagement kickoff meeting with partners and the public. In February, we began a series of partner technical review group working group sessions. These topic-specific meetings focused on discussing and reviewing specific sections of the SWAP, and we held 14 meetings between February and May, and recordings of those are all available on our revision website for anyone who may have missed one or would be interested in going back and seeing what we were discussing. Also in the spring, we ramped up our non-technical focused outreach and education, utilizing a variety of formats to reach new audiences and the general public. Our staff worked hard to incorporate the feedback that we received throughout this engagement process to complete a final draft of the SWAP at the beginning of July. This draft is currently available on the revision website, and we are accepting comments for the next couple of days until the end of July. And this allows us to be able to submit our final draft to the ODFW Commission for review and approval at the August Commission meeting coming up on August 15th. And finally, the SWAP is due to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on October 1st, 2025. Following submission, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service will develop a technical review team that will approve the revision sometime in 2026, hopefully sometime in the spring. So now I'm going to get into some more of the details about what we've accomplished in the last few years. There are a number of updates that are particularly impactful to the content, and so I'm just going to highlight those here and then go into some more specifics of each of our focal areas. One key change throughout the SWAP is the name change, and we've changed the name to the State Wildlife Action Plan, or the SWAP, from the Oregon Conservation Strategy. And this reflects really the total integration of what were previously two separate documents referred to as the Oregon Nearshore Strategy, which focused only on marine issues, and the Oregon Conservation Strategy. And the intent with this integration is really to allow us to elevate the issues in the nearshore and make information across all of Oregon's ecoregions more readily accessible to users by keeping all of that related content on a particular subject in one place. We've also changed several of the foundational terms that were used during this revision to get us more in line with national terminology. And this includes things like changing the name of our strategy species to SGCN, or species of greatest conservation need, and our strategy habitats to key habitats. And while this might be a little bit challenging for us in the near term, long term for Oregon, it's really going to be beneficial to help us communicate more succinctly with partners, especially when we're thinking about partners that cross state boundaries and are using different SWAPs in different states. And it also helps us to be clear with what our intent is with consistently identifying species that are at risk using that SGCN designation. Our next big update is that we've added pollution as a brand new KCI. While this large-scale threat was part of previous iterations of the SWAP, we didn't really provide information in one centralized location until we added it as its own separate KCI. We completely restructured the conservation toolbox to enhance usability and added sections that showcase the types of actions that individuals can take. We also comprehensively reviewed our COA's conservation opportunity areas to make sure that they are including up-to-date information and to really ensure that they are consistent between different COAs and consistent in how they treat certain land classifications. We also conducted a comprehensive review and revision of our species lists, and we are showcasing beaver and beaver modified habitat to better present information on how they relate to the conservation of our most imperiled species and habitats. So with that broad context, let's look a little bit more closely at the updates in each of the focal areas of the SWAP, and I'm going to start today with species. We have 3 broad categories of species included in the revised SWAP. And here I'm going to just keep this high level, but if you have questions, definitely feel free to ask. Our species of greatest conservation need, or our SGCNs, are those species that we've identified as having imperiled conservation status. These are those species that met 2 or more of our conservation criteria that are intended to identify species that are most at risk in Oregon, and for which timely implementation of conservation measures to address existing or potential threats is really needed to prevent them from declining to the point of qualifying as threatened or endangered. The next group of species is species of greatest information need, or SGIN. These are species for which we just don't have enough information. We don't know enough about them to determine what their conservation status is. So there's a reason that we might be concerned, but we just don't have the data to back it up, and we're not able to evaluate those successfully. So we need more information in order to have a better determination of their actual conservation status. And in addition to our SGCN and our SGIN, there are a number of ways that we're including other species within the revised SWAP. As we all know, there are a lot of species that are key to informing conservation actions in the state, but they don't really fall neatly into either one of those previous categories. One of these examples is American beaver and beaver modified habitat. We determined through our assessment that American beaver do not meet the definition of an SGCN in Oregon, but we do recognize that it's really important to highlight their role in conservation within the SWAP, both in KCIs as well as in pertinent habitats like wetlands, flowing water, and riparian areas, and aspen woodlands. During the revision, ODFW staff assessed well over 600 species and species groups for inclusion as SGCN. This resulted in roughly 320 unique species of amphibians, birds, reptiles, mammals, fish, invertebrates, plants, and algae that were included as SGCN. 85 species were added as SGCN, 32 species that were previously identified as SGCN were actually moved to SGIN, and 28 species were removed. The next focal area is key habitats identified within the SWAP. And those key habitats are native habitats of conservation concern that are essential to many of our SGCN within the state. In our approach to revising the key habitats for the SWAP, there were 3 main focuses. We completed a reanalysis of habitat change partnering with the Institute of Natural Resources. We revised the threats and conservation actions and all the information provided for each key habitat, and we updated the mapped extent of key habitats within the state. We did not add any new key habitat types, as existing categories remain inclusive and relevant. However, the 5 habitat types that are in the nearshore ecoregion are now presented collectively as the 12th key habitat under nearshore habitats. So for our next focal area, that is going to be our key conservation issues, or KCIs. KCIs are those major mechanisms that impact broad suites of species and habitats over large landscapes throughout the state. KCIs include threats like climate change, barriers to animal movement, invasive species, water quality and quantity, and others. Some of the highlights of the revision of our KCIs are, again, the addition of pollution as a brand new KCI. We also completely overhauled the climate change KCI with the support of the Northwest Climate Adaptation Science Center to ensure that it reflects the most current data in science. And we moved content from the challenges and opportunities for private landowners KCI to the conservation toolbox. Next, I want to talk a little bit about our conservation opportunity areas, or our COAs. These are really built to help practitioners focus their conservation efforts and financial investments in specific areas across the state to increase the likelihood of long-term success over large landscapes. For the revision, we performed an extensive cost-benefit analysis with more than 250 data layers to delineate the draft boundaries. Information taken into consideration in drafting these revised boundaries included both beneficial factors like presence of SGCNs and key habitats, and detrimental factors like the presence of pollutants or impervious surfaces. We also worked in this revision to make COAs consistent with how they treat land designations like designated wilderness. And a web map is currently available with an associated survey link on the SWAP revision page, again, until the end of July and July 31st. And so the last focal area that I want to touch on is the conservation toolbox. So even if you are really familiar with the toolbox, this section is going to look brand new to you. In this revision, we identified as a priority the need to empower more Oregonians to be able to take voluntary conservation actions. We wanted to really ensure that we provide those tools and resources to help people develop sufficient capabilities, as well as the motivation to be able to take advantage of existing opportunities to act. We also wanted to do better at helping to connect folks in all of Oregon's communities to the conservation needs and opportunities that exist in both their areas and the areas that they spend time in. For the average Oregonian who's not already engaged in conservation, it can be really hard to take a look at the SWAP document that's over 500 pages long and identify your role. And the toolbox is really what we have to help people bridge that gap, providing information on specific actions that individuals can take at the neighborhood, household, or even watershed scale. And those really do tie back to the species, habitats, and threats that we've already discussed. So during the revision of the toolbox, we worked directly one-on-one with partners across the state to learn from their experience and to find where we could showcase their stories as a means to show and not tell how Oregonians can take action to support wildlife, fish, and their habitats. And finally, I'll just provide a quick update on the website. So hopefully you are all familiar with the Oregon Conservation Strategy website. And our strategy was actually the only fully web-enabled SWAP in the last round of revisions that were completed in 2016. Because of this, the OCS was really held up as that gold standard of what a SWAP could be. Because the OCS is web-enabled, we are able to reach a much broader audience with well over 100,000 unique users each year. And so it's really unparalleled among the states on how accessible it is, and it really increases our ability to impact everyday Oregonians, and it allows us to share our resources more broadly. So for this next revision, our goal was for sure to continue to have this really web-enabled, well-done, accessible SWAP. And so once the content of the revised SWAP is reviewed and approved by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in early 2026, we'll be making updates to the current website and publishing those as we get that approval from the service. That means that the new SWAP content will be initially integrated into the existing website, OregonConservationStrategy.org. We then anticipate that the OCS website will be sunset sometime in 2027 and replaced as a part of the agency-wide website update process to make sure that information is accessible, navigable, and can connect individuals interested in conservation in Oregon with the resources they need. So we'll eventually be moving into a agency under the umbrella of the agency-wide web services. So as I mentioned earlier, the entire draft SWAP is currently available on our revision website. Comments to us are open for just a couple more days until July 31st for them to be considered before commission review and approval. If folks are unable to comment before the 30th or 31st, additional public comment will be taken through the regular commission process. That allows us to submit the final draft to the commission for review and approval at the August commission meeting on August 15th. And again, the SWAP is due to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on October 1st, 2025. And following submission, the service will develop that technical review team that will approve the revised SWAP in 2026. So that's when you can look forward to seeing all of that information available on the website. With that, I'll just leave you with our email address for anything related to the SWAP revision, as well as the web address of our revision website, and say thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great presentation. That's a lot to put together. I personally just really appreciate the elevation of the beaver piece in the strategy, which was sort of a glaring absence in the previous one. So thank you for that. But really appreciate you giving us that update. Does anyone have any questions about it?
One super,
Kelly?
super fast question, Carolyn. You mentioned in 2027 that it was gonna move over then to like the ODFW platform, you know, probably your government website. Is that being restructured, or it's still like, it's gonna kind of look like it is now, or? I'm only asking because some of the government websites are quite limiting in like functionality and user friendly, and the way it is right now is very user friendly. So I'm wondering how much you think the formatting might change.
Yeah, it's really hard for us to know right now because we're very much still kind of in scoping when it comes to what the new ODFW site is going to look like. But we also have been really adamant that we maintain the accessibility and the navigability and user friendliness of the website that we currently have for it to be worth it for us to move over. And so that is something that is really important to us and something that we will work really hard to maintain. I do anticipate the look of everything changing just because it will be a different platform with different capabilities and things like that. But we're hopeful that any changes will be positive changes. And like I said, this is something that is really important to us to maintain as well. And so we will be working hard to make sure that we don't lose anything with that transition.
Well, thank you.
So Carolyn, in 2026, it sounded like that's when the new website material, new swap content will be on the existing website. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
Okay,
So
great.
we anticipate approval from the service. Probably we're saying like March, but honestly, it's hard to know. It really depends on how quickly the regional review team can get through the process of the review and approval. But so we're anticipating sometime in the spring, and yes, that's when we'll publish all of the new information to the website.
Great, that's good to know. I send people there all the time, so.
I know.
to know.
Good.
Thank you so much for doing this update with us. I'm sure this was helpful for the committee as they're implementing the conservation strategy swap and their funding decisions. So this was a really good update for everybody. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much. And yeah, appreciate you all and the support that you give the swap as well. So thanks. And if you have any questions, definitely let me know.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now the whole, Sarah, the whole reason for the swap, that was the way I understood it, conservation strategy, all that was born out of what was going to be required to participate in the Recovering American Wildlife Act funds.
It goes back further than that. It was a requirement to receive state wildlife grants, which are a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service funding opportunity for states. It was feeding into states' proposals of what they would do with RAWA funds if that were to pass. But in the timeline of things, state wildlife action plans were a requirement of eligibility for SWIG grants or state wildlife grants. Yeah.
Is that still the case?
That is,
Yeah, it's the federally mandated for every state.
All right. Any other questions about that plan? I really am happy. In the previous Oregon conservation strategy, like beavers, there wasn't even the word beaver in it. Changed.
it's the foundational document for this committee's work and how you prioritize your projects. So I'm glad everybody scheduled this on the agenda. That was smart.
Yeah.
Okay, so we only have a couple more things. One, very pertinent is the strategic communications update. Reva, do you have something on that?
Yeah. Let me just. Quick. This. Okay, so this agenda item is going to be pretty short, as Sarah mentioned earlier, because the communications planning is is going to finish in like the next couple days. Their contract is gonna end on the 31st. We have received quite a few of the materials, but we're still, we still need to talk about them, review them, and so what I can share is I can advance this. They've been working on some success stories with 4 different grantees, OCF grantees. So they've worked on Northwest Bat Hub success story. The People of Color Outdoors submitted some information for a success story, and then Oregon Hunters Association, they worked on one that was about working with adults in custody, doing meadow restoration. That's and then a salmon launch project. So that's what they've been working on. And like I said, we still need to kind of get together, talk about it, and figure out how we're going to use these materials going forward. Yeah, is there anything, Sarah, that you'd like to add about this communications?
No, other than, I think there's some good stuff in there that we'll be able to leverage. I think we want to think strategically in the department about which of those feel like most ripe and most relevant to, upcoming session, what's relevant to fundraising. And then the intention would be to have kind of probably a strategy for our own release of some of these materials, as well as making them available to partners. And then I think we would like to present back to you with what all the products were, how we think they would be most useful. And then relate that back to kind of some of our strategic goals of engaging new applicants, engaging fundraisers, et cetera. So kind of grounding it back and why we did this to begin with.
That'd be like September,
Yeah.
October, or what?
I think so. September.
Yeah, work. We could touch base at our next meeting more about, once we've had more time to digest all the materials and figure out how we're going to use them. They have also put together grantee toolkits that should help with grantees sharing their story about the OCR. What we get to do.
Well, it's a good time to have that material. First to your house. I think it's the best way to use that is.
Yeah.
And appreciate Adam has participated in a lot of that work, and we really appreciate him being there. And hopefully help give us some guidance on what's going to be most effective with it. How to use it. So,
Adam, do you have anything to add all the way down at the other?
No, I think that toolkit was the one thing I was gonna add. It seems to be a real need for just explaining, hey, we need photos, we need video, here's how to get them to us.
Right.
Then also here's a way for you to share on social media, really packaging that up so it's very easy. I think that'll really increase the reach of OCRF more than just our ODFW channel.
so they've done some things to connect with social media. Is that what you're saying? Or there's ways to?
Yeah, the toolkit would be like, now that you finished your project, here's some key messages to share, develop some social media posts. It's pretty basic, but I think that's one of the things I'm excited to see and share with you all and kind of get that hung up and ready to use.
And OWEB really did a big effort, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now to increase their social media platform and then having other people share it. So I would say they've also expanded into tons of other all around conservation groups, sharing each other's stories.
So are you involved in that in your own work?
Yeah,
Finish
now that
something
we
up?
hired a lovely young person who is like on the social media, but yeah, it's so important and we hear it. I didn't think it was gonna be that important, but everyone's like, oh, I love what you're doing. It's funny, it's quirky, like it was really like it's a good tool. So we've been, repeating OWEB's things when they highlight the sport, so.
That's good insight. All right, so, I think as far as business items, did you have anything particular for you other than the next meeting?
Yeah, just next meeting and then wildlife crossing RFI update on how that's going. But it shouldn't take too long. So this is just a timeline to show you where we're at in our spring grant cycle and that it's going to commission on September 12th for approval. And release of funds following contract process in November.
Just to clarify on the wildlife crossing funds, that's still open. There's still an opportunity for people to apply, but we really haven't gotten much traction there. Is that accurate?
That's right. So we did the second release of the wildlife crossing request for information, and we're hoping to get more interest. And we only got one letter of interest submitted before we had set the deadline. It's July 11th. So now we've extended it to September 19th, give it more time. And then there was actually an article that went out about that extension. So I need to forward that to you all. The next article, in Oregon Live. So, yeah, continue to spread the word as we can about these funds. With all those sideboards, it's been tricky to get those projects that are ready to go, but that's kind of where we're at with that second request for letters of interest.
If y'all recall, we sort of went out on a limb at one point and funded the frog crossing way ahead of time. And so that was a good move on our part. That was a good thing.
Yeah, and then I just have that your next meeting is September 2nd. So day after Labor Day, I think. And you're supposed to be hearing from the Oregon Coast Aquarium and Middle Fork Watershed. Yeah.
Appreciate you setting up these. It's lovely to hear back from them. Awesome.
Yeah, I bet it's been rewarding, the impact, yeah. That you guys are having.
We can also revisit the remaining funds and timing of the solicitation. That sounds good to you, Carla. And we can do a presentation on the products from the strategic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, is there any other business anyone wants to bring up or something we didn't cover?
We just talked a little bit, Reva, you and I talked about it too, but when there's a lot of reports, it's on a lot of final reports that the applicants have submitted that the IT people hadn't had a chance to upload yet.
Yeah.
It seems like
We can get them all
you
posted.
could nudge them along.
That's one of the things we should put on the agenda to have
Yeah.
just an agenda about monitoring or like retrospective review, just again, to be true to what we originally said we were gonna do. That's something to think about over this next year. Could be very informative. And even just her presenting lessons learned to us, I mean, it's really good to hear those kind of things. Maybe inform us on how we pick projects and the questions we ask our applicants.
Maybe another thing that you can look into is the issue that you had with ranks and raw scores, and maybe looking at ways which you weight scores or the most equitable way of ranking them. So when you have a line between sevens, you can more calculate it more precisely exactly where that line would fall.
Right, write down all your. There is no perfect. Be happy to entertain any of it.
I also noticed on the applications, we have a lot of repeat people that got funded, but almost none of them put their previous grant into examples of projects completed.
Really?
And I didn't see it very often. I don't know if anyone else did. And I just looked at the website yesterday and it was a good website. There wasn't everything on it, but I was wondering if we could, I guess we can always go back and look, but you have to know when it was funded, what year and what season and everything. But it's just an example of their previous work that would be handy to have. So,
The application.
yeah, in the
like,
application,
yeah.
especially with as many repeat
Right.
people as we have.
Right.
If you were awarded,
Hmm.
please write that one down.
Right.
Yeah, that could just be a good nudge to have in the application.
Yeah.
If we want that information.
Well, I think we have come to the end of a in-person meeting, and two things I want to again recognize Christine and appreciate. Sorry about the droopy flowers.
I'll take that.
And I also want to just say how much I appreciate Sarah being back, and
Oh, it's fun. It's so fun to be back.
we started. And it's great having her input. And Adam as well for all the great work that you did with the patients. Thank you. And thank you for all the, making all this happen.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tiffany.
My pleasure. I'd like to say it's nice.
We got,
We had more time together.
I know.
I'm gonna try to do this more often. Maybe we could have a meeting at Stratford.
That is wild.
Every while.
This is your first time.
Yeah.
This is my first time meeting everybody in person. Because I missed the last one that was in Portland.
Oh, that's right.
That's 3 years. Hi, nice to meet you.
It's always taller than I think they're gonna say. Kind of like teens. They don't seem small.
Everyone.
Except for last day.
Oh, everybody travel safe.
Yeah.
Wow.
Watch out for animals on the road.
Right. There's so many. All right, next time. Okay.
Is there anything?
Yeah,
you need
definitely.
from me?
Good job. I'd
Before I
love
go?
to see ya. Yeah.
I do. Get into a good cause.
Good idea.
Not gonna be alone in there.
Um,
Oh, yeah.